Today we're going to install the AirDog system, and you're going to see 3 separate videos posted here, but we're going to kind of do bam, 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 one after the other. But we'll install the AirDog system, our fuel system upgrade kit for Caterpillar engines, and this one's specific for the 40-pin ECM, and then also our Champ 2 high pressure air separation system. Right now we want to talk about the AirDog kit and what's in the box. So basically when you open this up, the first thing you'll see is our wire harness. Take that out and set that aside. Secondly, right under that, the warranty card. Very important, within the first 30 days or so of purchase, please fill this out and send it in. You can also go on our website, airdogdiesel.com, and you'll find a form easily fillable right online there. You can submit it without having to write anything down. Just key in your serial number, which is on that card. Send that in to us in the first 30 days. Be sure you're covered for the 4-year warranty. Next, if you ordered it, this is an optional kit, our SBK 1000 sandwich bracket kit. If you ordered this, it'll be in your AirDog box. Now what this kit is basically a set of hardware and brackets to facilitate a no-drill installation. The AirDog comes with a set of left and right brackets, and we'll show you all this here very shortly. But basically those left and right brackets mount directly to the truck frame. Without the sandwich bracket kit, you have to drill 4 holes in the frame and then bolt directly to the frame. The sandwich bracket kit enables you to basically sandwich the truck frame with a set of hardware and brackets, no drill installation. So it basically just a bolt together, a simple installation, no drilling required. Our installation kit, hardware, fittings, and whatnot, all included in one box here. Inside this white box, you will see all of your engine specific fittings. This is for the fuel supply and return, everything that's needed for your AirDog installation specific to this Caterpillar engine. Now your AirDog system, of course, with filters, water separators, and whatnot. The only thing I want to be sure to tell you about right here, you notice this highlighted little sticker here. This is just a friendly advice here regarding pressure washing of the fuel system. We ask that you don't do that, quite simply. The AirDog system, the pump, is water sealed and whatnot for weather and just general environment. It's really not built for being subjected to high pressure washing systems. So please don't do that. If you have to pressure wash the engine, of course, that's pretty typical. Just avoid the AirDog system. Don't high pressure wash that system. And lastly, just a piece of 3/8 ID return line, fuel line for your return line, from the AirDog, and this will tee into your factory return going back to the fuel tank, and we'll talk about that as we get into the installation here shortly. So what Lance is doing here is, you'll see step 1 of the installation process here is to identify exactly where you can install this. So he's just basically lining things out here, seeing where it's going to fit and how and whatnot. We've got some brackets, you got a steering shaft, there's always something on these truck frames to deal with. So we're just making sure that we've got clearance on the front and back side of the frame, making sure it'll fit in between components and whatnot. So he's got a spot picked out, we'll bolt it together and be back in a minute. One thing you'll notice included in the kit, we have 2 different bolt sizes here, or lengths. Just because truck frames vary so much, basically use whichever length you need for your frame. So at this point, we'll also install the left and right brackets from the AirDog kit. So if you were not installing the sandwich bracket kit at this point, you would drill 4 holes, 3/8 inch diameter holes in the truck frame to mount the AirDog kit directly to the AirDog pump directly to the truck frame. Using the sandwich bracket kit, we'll install these left-right brackets to the sandwich bracket set, and then the AirDog mounts to the brackets on that kit. Next thing we'll do is test fit the pump on the brackets to make sure everything clears like it's supposed to. We're going to go ahead and pull the filters off, just make sure we don't scratch or dent anything in the process here. But we'll test fit the AirDog pump to the sandwich bracket set, left and right brackets, to make sure everything clears above and below. Looks like it sits in there pretty nicely. Next step, we'll go ahead and bolt the AirDog pump to the left and right brackets. Next step is we will put some thread sealer on each of the fittings that attach directly to the AirDog, and then install those fittings into the AirDog. There are 3 fittings here. This 1/4-inch pipe fitting is your air return fitting, goes into the smaller threaded port on the left side. 5/8 wrench to tighten that one up. Next 2 fittings to attach to the AirDog are the 1/2-inch pipe by -10 JIC fittings. Again, little thread sealer on these fittings. So 15/16 size wrench to tighten these fittings into place on the AirDog. So the next step we're going to do is installing the pressure sensor. In the top of the AirDog, there's a small elbow here that has a pipe plug in it. During manufacturing, for testing purposes, we put a plug in there just to facilitate, testing on our stand. You'll remove this little pipe plug and then install a pressure sensor there. Lance is putting thread sealant on that sensor right now, and we'll be right back to install that. 3/16 Allen wrench, hex head to remove that pipe plug out of the elbow. Install that sensor. 7/16 wrench to tighten the pressure sensor into place. Might be worth mentioning here, be sure to use a proper size wrench to turn on the hex of the pressure sensor. Don't use the pliers or anything like that to grab onto that plastic housing. It is plastic, can crack if it's really tweaked in the wrong spot, so just use a wrench and tighten up on the hex. So next step is to attach the outlet side of the AirDog, which feeds the engine transfer pump. Fuel line to go from the AirDog to the engine transfer pump. Again, we're using the factory line here, which in this case, because we put the AirDog forward a little bit from the original primary filter, we've got some extra line there that will zip tie out of place, but we can reuse that factory line. Next step here is we're going to run the AirDog return line. This is simply the low flow return line for the air and vapor that we separate from fuel from the inlet side. We're going to tee that back into the engine return. It goes back to the fuel tank. One of the benefits to the AirDog system is that our demand flow pump, in addition to air and vapor, we return just a trickle of fuel, with the air and vapor that we're separating from fuel. So we don't have a large volume of fuel to return, and because of that, we're able to tee into the factory return right at the side of the engine here. We don't have to run a large return line back to the fuel tanks. So what we're doing is, before the splitter, teeing into the engine return to the fuel tank, so that just utilizing that engine fuel return means that we can do this much more quickly and easily. Part of this is to ensure that we're maintaining adequate pressure through the system. Included in your kit is a specific restricted fitting. We're going to take the factory return line off of the secondary filter head here. You'll pull that fitting out. It's a -8 JIC fitting. and you'll put this restrictor fitting in there. It's an ORB, like a 3/8 O-ring boss fitting to -8 JIC, and you'll notice this brass bushing in the side of the filter. This is your restrictor. It's painted yellow. So, and again, this is just to help maintain adequate pressure through the return system. Is that 11/16? No, 13/16. 13/16 wrench to take the original fitting out, and same size to put your new fitting in. Tighten the restrictor fitting into place. Next piece included in your kit is a T, JIC T fitting. Thread sealant on this 1/4-inch pipe fitting that goes into the T. So the T we're using here is a -8 swivel by -8 JIC. And then the teed in section in the middle is a 1/4-inch pipe by -6 JIC, which is where our AirDog return line is going to tee in. There is an elbow included in the kit if needed. You know, a 90-degree elbow to attach to your return line to the AirDog, you know, and to run to the return tee that we just ran. In this case, we're pretty close to the shock there, so we're going to use that 90 to attach to the AirDog. 11/16 wrench to tighten that elbow on there. Always tight quarters on these trucks. I'm going to push a push lock fitting. You'll notice there are several 3/8 or -6 swivel push locks included in the kit. So Lance is pushing one of those into one end of the return line. Use a little engine oil or other lubricant to lubricate that push lock to push it into the hose, just to make that easier. Attach one end to the AirDog. Attach one end to the AirDog. And kind of gauge the length of line you need to attach to that T-fitting that we just ran to the side of the factory secondary. Cut that line to length. Always find it easier to pull that line back off and then repeat the process. Lubricate that push lock fitting and push it into the other end of the line. 11/16 wrench again to tighten those return fittings into place. On this truck, and basically this truck is pretty original, so we're dealing with the original fuel lines here. They're actually fairly worn and brittle. We're going to install a complete new line for today, just for installation purposes, for this instructional. We're going to leave this line in place, and we're just going to make a short run from the factory line to the AirDog. So you'll see all that connection made here shortly.
I'll just tighten this and zip tie in place, and then we can show us connecting it, I guess, here.
Yeah.
Alright, we got zip tie handy.
So basically, we just want to kind of talk about what we're doing with the wiring harness here, included with your AirDog kit. Relay. You'll see where we're going to basically hang this relay here. So this is what's triggering power to your to the AirDog system. Power and ground, which we're going to run straight to the battery, and there's an inline fuse in that line. And then attaching to the AirDog, you have two fittings here. One is for power to the AirDog pump. The other one is your indicator light lead, which will attach to a pressure sensor that we're going to install in the top of the AirDog here. And then the only other lead, we've got a relay trigger wire and an indicator light lead. These are going to run together through the firewall, and we found a nice location where there's a hole existing in this Peterbilt. If there happens to not be a hole there, for you to run through, we'll drill a 5/8 hole to feed your indicator light lead and relay trigger wire through. In this case, there's an existing hole, so we're going to utilize that. Included in your AirDog kit is an indicator light. This is basically a light that comes on when the AirDog pressure sensor is sensing low pressure. Ordinarily mount this in the dash. Just find a spot, on the dash. We have room for it for this little plate. And in this case, in this Peterbilt, we actually have a hole that's already there, so we're going to utilize that hole. If you don't have a hole that's existing, drill a 3/8 diameter hole, and you'll install that light. And then we'll walk through the process here as we go, but real simple process here.
Okay, as you can see here, we got our relay trigger wire pulled through the firewall. So what you want to do next is go through with a voltmeter and find a circuit here that has 12 volts with the key in the run position. You want to verify that it isn't hot all the time and that it does not get hot with the key in the accessory position. So let's go ahead and do that. So this circuit here does get hot with the key in the run position. Now let's go ahead and turn the key back to accessory to verify that it's not hot. Okay, perfect. So we'll use that circuit. A couple different ways to do this. You can use an added circuit there and use it that way, or you can also go onto the back side of your ignition switch and find a terminal also that gets hot with the ignition in the run position. So basically in this truck there's already a hole here that we can utilize, but we'll just remove this dash panel so we can get behind the outside and fish our wires through there. So you'll get it where you want it. Remove the double-sided tape. And install the nut and the washer on the back side. Next, you'll just fish your leads up there for your low pressure indicator light. Once you get your leads through here, you'll just plug them into the back of the light. And just zip tie that up to the factory harness so it lays out of the way. Make sure it doesn't interfere with the factory steering column.
Final step for power, we're going to run power and ground. In this case, because it's pretty close proximity, we're just going to run it straight to the battery box and connect there. So
kind of snake it down here and follow the factory wiring harness down, and be sure to keep it away from the steering shaft so it doesn't. The green wire will go on the negative lead. And the red, of course, will go on the power lead.
Make our connections to the power lead on the top of the pump motor, and then the connection to the pressure sensor for your indicator light. And that's it for the wiring harness, other than using the included zip ties to tie everything into place, just make sure everything's secure.
The top one.
Oh, for that?
Yeah.
I got some longer ones, I'll grab one.
You want to see if we got a even larger one? Would be fine. Yeah.
So we recommend filling the water separator just to help the system prime, at startup. It is a self-priming system, so the fuel pump will fill the filter side. Filling the water separator just kind of helps it get started, especially if you happen to run new lines and you have empty lines and whatnot. It's just a long pole from the fuel tank, so just filling that water separator helps it get started. When it comes to filter changes, you'll really appreciate the AirDog self-priming feature, though. It makes it very simple to prime the system. It'll do the work for you. So we attached the gauge to the CompuCheck on top of the secondary fuel filter. Basically just going to check AirDog pressure to see what kind of pressure we're putting into the fuel system. And then we can also start the engine and we'll check transfer pump pressure as well going into the secondary. So we'll just key on. We're sensing just the AirDog only. You can see we're factory preset to about 32 PSI. So that's what the AirDog is feeding into the transfer pump, and onto the secondary filter head. So. So our target pressure is 118 to 120 PSI. Right now we're at about 112. So there are several shim sizes included in the AirDog kit. We're going to open up the transfer pump regulator, put in a small shim, and then we'll recheck our pressure.
So on this particular one, I did have to pull out the one of the mounting bolts to access the regulator bolt head.
Basically those regulator springs lose a little bit of their tension over time.
Over the years, yeah.
So we're just shimming to take up some of that slack and get it back up to factory spec.
Is that what they look like?
And so,
Yeah, depending on the age of your pump,
Yeah.
there's 3 different generations of pumps that it could be. In this particular case, it is a first generation pump. All 3 generation shims will be in the kit. And you'll see here, this is the first gen pump, so it does have a stiffener pin in there. We provide you with a new one. So you just take the new stiffener pin, put it in the cap, and then there's 3 available shims for that. We're going to start with a smaller one since our pressure is already pretty good. Just put it underneath there like that, install the spring over the top of the stiffener pin, reinsert it back in the pump and retest. There is going to be a little more tension on it now too that you got a shim in there, so a little bit harder to get started than factory setup. And most of the time the relief valve seat stays up in the pump when you take the spring and the cap off. But it is recommended to lay a paper towel or something down there to catch if it does try to slide out. Alright, got the shim installed. We're gonna start it, actually we're gonna reinsert had to remove one of the mounting bolts to access the cap, so we're gonna reinstall that and then retest.
All right, retesting for pressure.